Welcome back, guys, to another lesson on the single-minded proposition. I love this quote by John Hegarty, who was explaining the single-minded proposition when he said, crafting a single-minded proposition is like writing the first ad for the project at hand. So this is really probably the meat of the creative brief and the thing that you really want to get right. Now, the thing about this is it requires a bit of a creative leap. You've got to, the strategy and data can take you so far, but this is where it gets a bit creative. So knowing that, what I always like to do is actually take a couple of different single-minded propositions to the creative team and work out which one is the right one. So it's never going to be, you never want to, it doesn't have to be just your decision, and it's a subjective thing. So you want to bring your creative team along on the journey. So what is the single-minded proposition? Well, it's the one message that we need to communicate to the audience. It's the focus of the brief, as I was saying, and the more messages, the less that gets through. So we really want to single in on what the one message is. It's also the answer to the consumer problem. So how are we getting people to look at the problem from another direction? So what we're after, if we go to the get who to buy formula, you've got your target audience up the top who we're targeting. The who is the consumer problem, and that's what we're trying to address with the single-minded proposition. You've got the to, and then the buy is the single-minded proposition. Now, the thing about the buy is people often say, what's the difference between the single-minded proposition and the buy? Well, the single-minded proposition and an insight. The insight is one part of the equation. It's like a cake and eggs. Eggs go into the cake, and the cake is the big thing. In this scenario, the cake is the single-minded proposition. The eggs, key ingredient, the insight. So it's where the insight and the brand or product reason to believe come together. So they're the two things coming together there. So if we use the Sainsbury's example, where they had the campaign, which was Feed Your Family for a $5 with Jamie Oliver, one of the most successful campaigns. There's been a number of case studies written about it. But if we were retrofit the get to buy there, it would be get weekly Sainsbury's shoppers who are buying the same ingredients week in, week out, cooking uninspired meals to spend a little more in their weekly shop by getting them to wake up and consider a new ingredient or two in each trip. So clearly, it's the message that we want to convey there. Another example here is Old Spice. Get couples who don't care much for their body wash habits to have a conversation around body washes by showing them the perils of men using lady-scented body washes. So again here, we've got the solution of what we actually want the advertising to say. So again, single-minded proposition, how do we get there? It's via research. This is where you've got to go off and really look at the problem and work out, are you trying to reframe the problem, or are you trying to come up with a new solution to it? So for instance, if we were to do a campaign for overnight oats, we know that there's a big trend at the moment towards mindfulness and eating more healthy. So overnight oats, and then the tension to that is that we're trying to be more mindful and more organic, but we've got less time than ever before. So the tension between trying to really take time to think about yourself, but then also being rushed, well, that's where overnight oats really play, because they you make them at night when you've got more time, and then when you're in the rush in the morning, you can get through them. So they're mindful fast food. That's our single-minded proposition. It's our way into the problem. People want to be more mindful in the morning, and they want to set up their day for a success. But a lot of times breakfast rushes them. So that's their problem. Now we're solving that with mindful fast food. So here, the reason to believe and reason this is so easy is all you need to do is add milk the night before when you've got more time. And this gives them like a feeling of control of each day. There's a great saying that you kind of know, as soon as you step outside, it becomes unpredictable. The world is out of your control. But when you're in your house and all the steps up to the front door are things that you can control. So this brief all around control and just adding oats, adding milk the night before. So fast food, mindful fast food, because it's good for your body. So it's really about building the buy statement. So here's just a couple more examples for British Airways, who had the Visit Mum campaign. What they wanted to do was, let's show that we understand why they make the journey. And so the campaign here was, British Airways knew that the long-haul flight for North America to India was a massive route. A lot of people, the data told them, a lot of people are flying back through London to get to India. Problem is, no one thinks of British Airways when they're making that trip. So what British Airways wanted to do was they wanted to show that they understand the consumer and why they're doing it. And the reason they did that is they realized that the mum had such a big pull in their life. And so they created the Visit Mum campaign and really showed that they understood the consumer and what was the kind of need that they were resolving. For REI, their whole campaign is around being outdoors and getting people outside. And they're thinking that a lot of people are spending too much time inside, even though they wish to be out. And so what did they do as their kind of single-minded idea proposition was, how about we shut our stores on Black Friday, which is the day when most people think about retail and going into retail, and get people to use long weekends and get outdoors instead. So they're closing their store, the hashtag opt outside. So you're seeing here what the single-minded proposition was, the single idea that they're trying to solve for. The world, consumers, they're not happy being inside and shopping and retail. And what is the day that we celebrate that the most? Black Friday. So they've found the tension there, and they've said, when everyone else is trying to make the cash registers sing, they're going to make a statement about what they're about and the problem they understand for consumers. And then the final one of try something new, the campaign we looked at the start was, what if we were to make Sainsbury's a store of ideas instead of groceries? So when people are bored and kind of looking at the same ingredients all the time, and they kind of feel like they're uninspired, well, what if instead of it being just a shopping trip, it could be a place where we inspire people to try something new and try new ideas? So they've taken the supermarket, which is usually the dull environment where you just pick up your staples, to place where ideas can come. So when we're looking for a single-minded proposition, what you're looking for is it to be substantiated on both sides. So you want a brand or product truth, and that's got to come through. And, you know, there's a chapter in brand strategy on benefit ladders, so definitely worth a look on that. So you want a substantiated by the actual brand or product, but then what you're trying to do is, what do you understand about the consumer and about the problem that they're dealing with, and how can the two overlap? And that overlapping area is where your single-minded proposition will be. So it's rooted in a consumer insight around the problem. They look at the problem this way. How can we shift their perception? And how does that shift create an advantage for the brand, because it's based on the product attributes or what the brand stands for. So how can we add those two pieces together? And then the final thing is that I feel like a lot of planners feel a lot of pressure to knock this out of the park and get a home run on this. The single-minded proposition is the hardest piece of the brief because, as I said at the start, it's a creative leap. So don't feel bad if you don't get it yourself. If the creative team beats your single-minded proposition and say, hey, Julian, how about we look at, overnight oats in this new way? And it's not about controlling your morning, but it's something about nighttime fun. Then if that idea is better, you just go with it. post-rationalizing and really if you feel like it's right in your head, there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like a lot of planners feel this pressure that their brief has to be the only way. There's a number of ways. This is a subjective leap. So the two ways that I deal with that are, one, I always take about 3 single-minded propositions into the creative director and I scratch them on a piece of paper and go, hey, these are where my head's at. Anything gelling for you, anything of interest, and try to see what they're resonating around. And then secondly, if the creative director comes back to me and says, hey, Julian, I think we've found a better way. If it's a better way and it makes sense and it clicks in with the target, the problem and the goal, then go with it. Post-rationalize, work the words backwards into whatever's ever their single-minded proposition is. Don't feel like you have to answer this yourself. So I hope that helps, and I hope a few examples helps to show what we're actually looking for in the single-minded proposition. As always, let me know if you've got any questions. Always happy to answer them.